Ευχαριστούμε όλους όσοι κατάφεραν να έρθουν σήμερα στο συνέδριο, παρόλο που έχουμε κάνει αλλαγή ημερομηνίας από τη συνήθη ημερομηνία που είναι γύρω στον Απρίλιο-Μάιο. Θα χαρούμε να σας δούμε σε ένα επόμενο συνέδριο σχετικά με το UCC, πιο ολοκληρωμένο και με νέες ιδέες και με νέες απόψεις και νέες τεχνολογίες σχετικές, πάντα με το UCC. Και θέλουμε να καλέσουμε τους Panelists για να ξεκινήσουμε τις ερωτήσεις, στις οποίες θα μπορέσετε να πάρετε απαντήσεις σε ερωτήματα που έχετε. Και με αυτή την ευκαιρία να καλέσω την κυρία Ismini Mavrogianni από τη Space Ελλάς, τον κύριο Alkiviadis Zoupas από τη Cisco, τον κύριο Frederic Schilton από τη Mitel, τον κύριο Angelo Gentili από την PartnetNet και τον κύριο Akshay από τη Reborn Communications. Ευχαριστώ. What does the future of communication and collaboration look like over the next 3 years? Παρακαλώ, ποιος θέλει να πάρει το λόγο.
So, like I said during the presentation, we just have to look back 3 or 4 years before to see where we were and where we will be in the future. For sure, it will be around user experience, about mobility, about adoption, and in the near future, 3 years might be far, but it has to be really simple to use for everybody, including the new generation, because the new generation will have and has already the habit of the mobility. So it is really about how we're going to build up now.
Please press it, Frederic. Thank you.
So, is that better? Okay. So I will start from the beginning. So, like I said during the presentation, this is all about how we are going to build an application for the next generation in order to embed them into the next steps. It's about user interface, it's about user experience, and it has to be extremely simple to use, to deploy, and it has to be cloud-based. And of course, more and more we'll see a new application around videos, around even translation on the shelf, communicating with people with different countries, with a Japanese guy without being able to speak Japanese, and with an automated translation engine, for example.
I think the additional bit that will come in also is the communication will not be restricted to us anymore. There'll be machines now. Inter-device communication will come in, so the network has to be ready to handle that kind of communication. It was a very interesting presentation. I could follow the slides luckily, and I think the spectrum of communication expands beyond humans to machines now as well.
Communications actually will be for humans, but the media will be different, and the way we do it and the place we do it will be different. The main thing is that artificial intelligence and automated systems will be inbuilt to this, and they will help us do communication easily with different languages to different systems and get information. We live it today with all the helpers we have already in our systems, and this is evolving fast. So that's what I see in the next 3 years, the evolving of this.
I think that we probably are going to see a few more examples of digital transformation, especially based on collaboration. I mean, the examples are coming up, but it's not mainstream yet. And of course, the things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and possibly IoT might be also more applicable and more integrated, let's say, to day-to-day collaboration services.
The IT landscape already has already changed the last 5 years. Everything goes to cloud, and many of the expected changes will come about as a result of the shifting attitude among employees, particularly as younger generations use all the social media, and the new trends are pushing to flexible working and embracing new technologies. So everything will go to cloud, and a new culture must be cultivated to all people.
We are finished? That's the next question. What forces will drive the transition?
So, like you said, this is about digital transformation. So, the forces is that the need of having seamless communication is obvious, and it will be driven also by the next and the new generation of young people coming to work with this habit of using mobile application.
I think there will be a commercial force as well that will drive this transition, because obviously the cost of maintenance is one of the big factors, especially for legacy networks. And with the increase in volume, the requirement for fast and agile scalability, it will be largely commercially driven as well. So I think with the big players getting involved now, the likes of Facebook and social media platforms, it will get interesting.
In addition to that, I believe also that it is easier to reach now the technology, so everybody can have it. So actually the masses will easily access technology and ways to connect to technology. That means that it will be easier for the platforms to provide the services. They have more people, so more money, so that's the drive.
I think that the forces towards this transition would be the need of the companies to transform their business, so it will come from the business aspect. They cannot stay steady while the world is changing, and also to staying competitive. And the second thing is that the applications we use in our personal life, artificial intelligence or simple things from Siri to Alexa or whatever, all these things that we experience in our personal life affect the business solutions that have to keep up the pace. So we're going to see, let's say, this kind of services in the corporate or business communication platforms.
Moreover, it will be the flexibility that they will have with the new technology trends, as well the financial purposes. It will be a cost reduction with no maintenance cost, as already told.
The next. What are the steps organizations should take today?
Choose the first seat.
Okay, I choose the first. Thank you. So steps will be, again, the mobility aspect, the simplification of the cloud bring also some question around security and around user experience. So I think it will be key for organization to have a kind of it won't be necessarily linked to the IT person, but it will be a new organization that has that will have to have in charge the deployment of such application in order to ease the work, in order to simplify the work. But it will be up to them to adapt also the way of working. So it has to be seamless. But inside the organization, the switch has to be made, especially if we look at some governmental organization where we are, in some steps, we are far from where we are today with some application. What we are showing today is the present and the future. Some organizations are really far from that, and there are a lot of steps that need to be proceed.
I think from an organizational perspective, we've got the organizations consuming this technology and also the organizations producing this technology and the move towards this future. So I think they will both need to have certain steps to undertake. So I think from a vendor perspective, definitely what we need to do is we need to be in line with the consumers, which direction it's going in. Absolutely easier said than done, because there's a whole range of factors to consider. But I think we need to have some sort of a common vision, which is not the easiest thing to do, both from driving the technology into the consumer base and adoption from the consumer base as well. So, simple example, till this date, many people prefer a phone that they need to pick up. In some areas, they want to hear a dial tone as well. So how can we make that user experience in line with the future that we're heading towards? I think that will be one of the steps we need to take.
I believe digital transformation is the answer here. They have to move forward, and at least in some regions we see very slower steps towards that, and we see problems also towards that from the government organizations, or most of the times. And on the other side, we have other organizations that they embrace all these technologies, open themselves to the world. That means that they get more exposure, more clients, more work. So actually you need to evolve, otherwise you will die. That is the answer. They have to move forward.
Completely agree. I think that each organization should see where it stands today. I mean, to understand first what is the current situation with the services it provides to employees and customers and partners. Understand first, yourself, what you do, see what the market can offer, and build a digital transformation plan, which it's a mandatory for me item for every business today.
From my point of view, organizations should first of all identify the need for change, analyze the current process, and make the improvement strategy in order to get the target they want.
How big an investment in terms of money and time is it for a company to build an IP communication network?
So this is really around, of course, investment. So depending on the country, depending on the region, depending on the activity, you might invest a lot in your IP infrastructure. But at the end of the day, what matters is really the usage. What matters is it easier to build a front end and to deploy application on the cloud, or is it better to rip and replace and change all the communication system? So today there are solutions to address both needs, and that is where the trend is, I think.
Generally speaking, it's equivalent of how long is a piece of string. We don't know. So each organization is at some stage of their transformation, because as you rightly pointed out, the intent is there to move towards a digital transformation. And the size of the investment, both in terms of time and money, would be dependent on what stage they are at and what industry they're in, because some industries are more heavily regulated than others. So it's pretty quick, for example, for a retail organization to move. Maybe slower for a financial organization, maybe even slower for a government organization. So it will depend on which industry they fall in and what stage of the transformation they're at, I think.
If I read the question, I understand that we're talking about the build of IP communication networks. So now the trend is that everybody should speak with everybody. So as in my view, I can say that the open systems are the key here, because they are lowering all these costs. So actually you can offer to everybody easier and more technology and more accessible things in terms of communications, that they don't have to pay a lot of money. So if everybody goes towards to open systems, then we can have easily this transformation and make everybody more easier to communicate between them. So the cost is low, but depends on the investment each company needs to do, and depending on the system that each company has already. So that's a big question.
It depends. It depends on many factors, but each organization must know at first how far it wants to go. So this will scale all the finance dimension they want to reach, and how far they want to go.
It depends, of course, no surprises here. All the factors that were mentioned before, but two things just to add, that the investment depends on what you want to achieve. So if the investment is right, it's not big or medium because it affects your business, and if you have to do it and it helps the business, is justified, then this is the right question. So I would say which investment is justified or makes business sense. And the other thing is, since cloud is an option here for most of the services, you can start with a very low cost, so it's easier to start if this question had a budget restriction aspect. Today is easier than ever to start slowly and experience the technology and expand later.
I have a question that we forget before. What will be the biggest hurdle to overcome? The third one.
I think we mentioned some of them already across the other questions. So having to work together, it's not the easiest thing to do. Normalizing on something like an open source platform, again, not the easiest to do. And I think even the user behavior, another hurdle that will not be easiest to overcome. But there's others, I'm sure, as we all realize.
Human behavior. Behavior and already established procedures is the problem, I think.
And also generation. Some generation are still using an old-fashioned or are using a desk phone. So we have to switch and help them to switch from some attitude to new usage. So it's up to the manufacturer to build up really simple applications so that they can move simply to that.
So this is why we have to cultivate a culture of collaboration and unified communication in order to go further.
So, what about the companies that have already invested big in analog technologies and network infrastructure?
So this is typically the question that is raised often by the customer who has already invested in an old technology, let's say, facing the digital transformation and with needs of an IP or new application. So it's about how we smoothly move them to this technology without replacing everything, but bringing pieces that can be hybrid, that can be hybrid in order to get connected to the cloud and then have access to new application. So that's the goal, and smoothly move to another transition. But it can't be a one-step transition. It has to be very smooth for the customer.
Yeah, I think the natural reaction always is sweat the assets. So try and get as much as you can out of this investment that has been made. But I think what they need to realize as customers is where is the tipping point, because along with the initial investment outlay for getting the technology, it's also more expensive to maintain legacy, as we can call it, technology. So they need to realize where the tipping point is, and exactly I agree, it won't be a one-step jump to the next generation network, but they need to phase and intelligently, instead of having a 10-year plan, maybe have a shorter plan, maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Again, easier said than done, but that would probably be something they can look towards.
There is a way you can use. First of all, you need to make the customer feel that he's happy paying new things and already get everything they could get out from the old system. But we call it soft migration. So you can offer some solutions that they can utilize the current infrastructure for a short or long time, depending on what this is, and in the same time get all the benefits of the new infrastructure working together. That means that you can get the benefits from both. And sometimes the old analog things, they be there forever. Maybe in some points there is no reason to change them. So the soft migration and the integration between the system is something we look forward, and it's something we focus, at least now, because it's easier to make the transformation.
Especially now.
Yes. First of all, a lot of things that were there in the old world still remain. Second, you can follow a hybrid approach. You don't have to replace everything at once. And the third that comes actually from the first two is that you can change at your own pace in most of the time. So I think that it's a common journey that the companies with old technology to move to newer stuff, and it happened successfully many times, this transition.
To give an example, carriers have historically made a big investment in analog circuits, so they are asking now what they have to do. The only way is to change to SIP technology and the new technologies. Big carriers now, they have sunset already the PSTN analog circuits, and they are the way to the SIP.
Is it enough to use your firewall for real-time communications?
Well, I would say firewall is one piece of security aspect. The whole thing is there's a whole bunch of software that need to be put in place in order to secure especially the voice over IP system. Just an example, in France we are following the ANSI regulation system in order to address the governmental because they need to have, for example, the Ministry of Justice, they need to have a very secure environment. So firewall is one piece, but we need a lot of software around to make sure that the communication system is reliable. The duplication is also part of this piece. So it's a whole bunch of software and hardware that needs to be put in place.
Yep, so no, firewall is not enough to secure real-time communications. Due to the very nature of the real-time communications, it's established on a per session basis, and then all the wrappers around it come in as well. So you've got to secure not just the communications aspect while the communication is going on, but there are records in place that are generated as a result of this, which again need to be stored and secured for various reasons. So firewall is one piece of the security equipment, and that's where I think the next question leads up to the session border controllers come in.
Yeah, actually, traditional firewalls actually doesn't even know what real-time communication is, so they're just passing packets. So we need systems and advanced firewalls to understand such traffic, and also in other systems around, like session border controllers, to secure.
Yes, me too, but in addition, I have to say that, yes, firewall, it will be one pillar, one component of the total portfolio to secure in order to mitigate and eliminate any risk from your infrastructure.
And also encryption. Encryption is also part of the way you can secure your communication, including recording.
Yes, it's one component of many others.
What are the main functions of a session border controller?
It's an exam.
Wikipedia.
A, B, C, D.
So, SIP security, interworking, and many other things that they can secure from the SIP trunking interconnection with the provider. This is one of the components that will fit with the firewall and many other things that will secure the network in order to keep your call encrypted and from any other risk.
Well, since the calls go outside the company and in untrusted zones, and you communicate and have video chat or whatever with other entities, the session border controller, in brief, is the let's say the component that connects the trusted zone, your company, with all the external collaborators, and it's a mandatory function in all the collaboration solutions.
Okay, session border controller is for security, one point, used for security. Second point, use it for offloading. That means some traffic stays in, some traffic comes out, and you keep it internally or externally, depends. We see it every day in all the new systems, and all the vendors now are adding SBCs on every system, from the smallest to the biggest. So this is a component we will see in the future more and more.
Yeah, I think so, exactly. Interoperability, security, and I'll add the third piece. It's a good feed into analytics as well. So it contains a lot of useful information being at the location where it is, and it can drive a lot of user behavior analytics as well as call trend patterns and communication patterns.
And it is often embedded into the communication system itself, especially when it comes to SIP trunk. So it is a piece of software that is now common to communicate for the SIP trunking.
What are today's common threats to your VoIP network?
This one is an example.
So there are many threats in the voice over IP network. So the only way to protect your system is it might be obvious, but it's to be up to date. It means that you have the latest version of the software, because all the patches or the security patches are in place. Same thing for the OS. Same thing for the all the applications that are around, including your browser, because there might be some link into some link and some leak into those applications. So for the customer, it is crucial to have the latest release in place and the latest security patch in place. And this is one of the reasons why we are promoting what we call the software insurance, in order to be up to date and to have the latest patches. Otherwise, the risk is shadow IT that can be a threat, and also being exposed to certain threats that are covered by some patches.
To understand the threat that we are exposed to in a voice over IP environment, we have to understand what the internet is. The internet is a body of connected pieces that are not really managed, and I think we have put management and we put RFCs and some guidelines around managing that. But the threat is very open, and now as we move towards networks that converge from different areas, from different technologies, from different devices, that threat is even bigger. Various threats exist. Data exfiltration, as I spoke about earlier on, man-in-the-middle attacks, your ability to carry out denial of service, telephony denial of service attacks. There's a range of things out there, and these tools are getting more and more sophisticated each day. So I think we have to understand that it's not a case of making a telephone call over a piece of wire, which, by the way, also could be tapped in the analog circuits. Now you're basically having a call traverse all sorts of networks. Most of them are not even in your control. So you are exposed to quite a lot. And I think we can pretty much all agree over here, and hopefully in the room as well, that securing such communications is critical to making it successful in the future. Because what we don't want is an image that, no, VoIP is unsafe, or unifying communications is unsafe, so we should not go for it. We want to secure it, and for that we have to understand how important security is.
That's very correct. I would add that VoIP as a protocol, SIP as a protocol, is very vulnerable. That means it is very, very easy to access, overtake, hijack, and use and manipulate. That means that you need to build a secure network, and you need to do proper design. The proper design is one of the key aspects to reduce the risk. Key design means that you need to lower the surface that someone can attack. For example, you have a PBX, you have X extensions, then you have to lower how many devices can connect to this. So if you have a device connected, then you cannot have another device connected at the same extension, even the password is leaked for some reason. Or you can do the same on the carrier side, or you can do the same on the remote extensions you have. Of course, security is something you need to add, and in the past, at least in our country here, we have seen very bad examples that they have compromised the VoIP as a solution, and everybody fears that. But we hope for the best, and everybody, most integrators, to do proper jobs in order to install the networks correctly for the carriers and for the customers. This way, we will build the trust.
There are various threats, and of course, denial-of service, toll fraud, and etc. But also the threats are always evolving. So today we have this kind of attacks, and maybe after 1 year something different. The important thing is to have an architecture that has security by design, and to maintain it and keeping up to date, as was mentioned before, in order to be always ready to tackle these kinds of attack. Technology allows today to have a secure network over the cloud or on premises, but it's a dynamic process, security, as for all the technologies.
So in addition to DOS attacks and it's eavesdropping, this is why the traffic must not be sent unencrypted. And another emerging VoIP technology is the phishing, which is the voice phishing. And the call fraud, as they already said that, or call fraud, it's the same.
What's the fixed network transformation taking place today?
So if we're talking about the desk phone, and what is the usage of the desk phone today, and how do we use on a daily basis? Do we use a desk phone? Do we use a desk phone? Do we use a mobile phone? So or do we use a soft phone on our PC? So what we see is that little by little, and depending on your activity, we are moving from a traditional desk phone to a mobile phone or a soft phone. And this is where we need to, especially for remote workers, for example. As a remote worker, you are using a soft phone, and it's very convenient because you have a desk phone everywhere you are. It's independent from your location. So this is where we are moving, and more, of course, we are mobile. That's obvious.
I think it's also the ability for the networks to self-heal to an extent, automatically be able to reroute traffic as is needed, and the whole junction of bringing these services together while driving the whole network transformation towards an IP-based communication as well. These are some of the things, although not all of them going on, but some of the very obvious things that we can see.
I believe fixed, it's a word that we will rarely use in the future. Nothing will be fixed. You will have your extension everywhere, you have your phone everywhere, you will have your applications everywhere, your data everywhere. The data will come after you. Nothing is fixed. So the fixed network is something is changing fast.
Okay.
How can you
maybe?
offer?
Wife, maybe.
That's the data.
Maybe? Yes. How can you offer session border controller as a service?
This was perfectly into your domain, I think so.
Well, I don't see it as a service. I see it embedded as inside the platforms. So as a service, it is already a value that is. It's a piece of software that is already embedded, and I don't see it as a service. I see it as an embedded piece of software that is mandatory in each communication solution.
So I'll take an opposite approach to this one, because I've seen this offered as a service, and I think more and more tier 2 and 3 service providers are adopting this. So the concept goes in, I said, tying up with what your domain is in the cloud. So you've got the category of private clouds, and then you've got the category of public clouds. So public clouds being AWS, Azure, Google, etc. And with the requirement for session border controllers, as we spoke about earlier on, more and more commercial opportunities have come up where instead of investing in the hardware on-prem, these providers have taken up instantiating SBCs in the public cloud typically, and offering that as a service to interconnect different networks, or even offer voice telephony services themselves, again, completely driven from the cloud. Commercially quite attractive, because then they move towards a monthly recurring OpEx model, and technically also very possible, because as we have gone towards making these clouds more and more accessible and having their infinite set of resources in there, the whole investment factor changes now to from having something in a data center hooked into a server to moving into an OpEx model and just putting a SBC application on there.
I will agree. Private clouds and this kind of solution is what session border controller as a service fits better. We have already vendors in our portfolio that offering such solutions, software session border controllers, scalable, that can accept any traffic, and also the licensing model behind that is scalable. So that is the key, to be scalable and dynamic, giving resources on that, on the security and on the interconnection.
So session border controller, in the past it was on premises due to the architecture. Now, because maybe your PBX is on cloud, your phones are on premises, you have multiple sites, a partner offering WebEx calling in our case, or other services to multiple customers. Offering session border controllers as a service is a very, let's say, logical scenario, because the session border controller needs IP connectivity to the branches, IP connectivity to the cloud, and it makes sense to host it in a partner data center or in a service provider data center, and then offer it to multiple customers as a service mode. So it makes sense now more than before, and I think we're going to see this more of these scenarios in the future.
Okay.
Ωραία, ευχαριστώ. Έχει κάποιος άλλος να κάνει κάποια ερώτηση? Ωραία. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ για τις απαντήσεις σας.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ και εσάς για το χρόνο σας. Θα χαρούμε να σας δούμε στο επόμενο συνέδριο UCC το 2020, που φιλοδοξούμε να είναι ανανεωμένο και στο σωστό του χρόνο. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ που ήσασταν εδώ.